The Ink and Paint Club podcast is intended for mature audiences. I know we're usually talking about kids' cartoons and stuff, but there's going to be naughty language. Anyway, listener discretion is advised.
They had like obstacle courses, and I think it was a Peacemaker obstacle course or some shit to promote the new show, and
Yeah.
I guess that was all indoors. So
We really want that to be a thing.
yeah, well, I mean it's John Cena. They're gonna isn't
I
it
don't
John
know.
Cena?
Yeah, it is. I don't understand the appeal of putting him on your television screen because it's really hard to see him already. So
Yeah.
You're listening to the Ink and Paint Club podcast, a proud member of the Geekly Grind Podcast Network.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is the Ink and Paint Club podcast. Once again, my name is JD, and I am joined by our birthday boy, Mr. Kyle. He's here.
Yo.
And Matt is also here.
I'm here. It's not my birthday, but happy birthday, Kyle.
Yeah, happy birthday, Mr. Kyle. But because it is Kyle's birthday today, we have let him choose the subject matter. And it's actually kind of an interesting one because I didn't know this even existed until he told me about it. So we're going to be talking about the short film of Oddworld AIDS Exoddus. Apparently, this was a short film comprised of cutscenes and original animation from Abe's Exoddus, old PlayStation game from the late 90s. I'll be honest, I have never played an Oddworld game. I know of it, but I've never played a single one. I have zero context for any of this. But Kyle, since this was your pick, why don't you tell us a little bit about this?
Okay. Well, I kind of have the same experience with it. I've known of it. It was one of those games as a kid that I thought was just ugly as sin and just really didn't want to get into it. 'Cause I mean, compared to the shit at the time, you have Banjo-Kazooie, you have Crash Bandicoot, all these fun, bright, colorful, cartoony worlds and stuff, and then you have something like Oddworld, and it's just like dingy, dark, gross looking, and stuff like that just didn't appeal to me as a kid. But being an adult now, I really appreciate just like the art direction and just how it looks. And I think it's kind of funny too because what is it? Because it's late 90s or whatever. I think Oddworld had a few music videos too, or cameos in music videos.
Oh yeah.
That's a little weird.
Yeah, weird. I kind of have like a recollect. I couldn't tell you what fucking music videos, but like I seem to remember that. Yeah.
Well, I bring that up because it just reminds me of like the dark, dingy art style for like bands, kind of like how you would see Iron Maiden and like the Mummy character.
Oh, Eddie the Head.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You know, shit like that. It kind of reminds me of that. I think that's cool. But no, I recently bought the Switch collection. It's the first game. Munch's Odyssey, I think, is the third game, and then Stranger's Wrath, which is like a complete
Offshoot.
different game. Yeah, it's a spin-off.
Yeah,
which is neat too because they do make references of Rupture Farms and all that kind of shit in there too. So it's interesting. So I bought the collection. I started playing Odyssey and was like, this is pretty cool. I like this world. And then I saw the movie. I haven't really played the second game, but I know the second game's kind of before DLC. The second game's pretty much DLC. It's about the same. They didn't change anything of it. There's just like few mechanical changes.
Sure. It's kind of like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask or something. It's built off the same engine, but there's like some slight improvements here and there.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's about my experience with it. After seeing the movie, I was like, all right, this is cool. It makes me really appreciate it even more now.
Yeah, I thought it was definitely interesting that you brought it up because I'm pretty sure it was just earlier this year they had released Soulstorm, which is a reimagining of Abe's Exoddus, which is what this short film takes its cutscenes from. And I thought it was funny. After I had watched this, which is like 15 minutes long, I checked to see like how much of how many cutscenes are like in Soulstorm, and it's about like an hour and 15 minutes worth of cinematics and stuff. And I was just kind of flicking around to see, because I knew that it was like a straight up remake, like it's reimagining, so there's no like, and there's not like a ton of scenes to compare and contrast, like, because they're not the same. But just to see like the quality and like it's incredible looking, like a Soulstorm. I mean, just because of the way the design and the aesthetic and everything, like how it's all, it has a bunch of like 90s sensibilities, but to see it done now with like the technology we have now, definitely interesting. Which is not to say that the short film doesn't, when you contextualize it, like, for 1998, like, because Kyle, you and I were talking about this before recording, but because you're saying like what a Toy Story came out like
96, I think.
Yeah. And I mean the stylization and aesthetic and everything in this, like, could you imagine them doing like a feature length like films that look like this? It'd be incredible, like around that time.
Yeah, I mean, even now it's stylized and it still looks good.
Yeah,
To this day, I think
the
so.
only thing working against it is just terrible quality, because what we all watched on YouTube was like a 9-year-old upload of like a VHS transfer of like
It's in 360p.
yeah. Which I was trying to think, like, even if you tried to like remake this from the cutscenes from the game, like I didn't actually check, but as far as I know, like it would have to be FMVs, and I feel like they would still be like really fairly lower quality. So I wonder if the ones for the film are technically higher quality, but because the only way you can get them is off of VHS, like if there's like a discernible difference or anything, because I don't think that they re-released it on DVD or anything.
Yeah,
I mean, like I feel like it's just like Flash, where it has to exist. And if you had like a cartoon in Flash, you could have like an amazing 1080p, release of it. Because I think they did that with Mucha Lucha. They had a 1080i Mucha Lucha release, and it looked fucking good. So
yeah, because an old Flash stuff, it's all vectors, so you can scale that up or down as much as you want. And you're not going to lose quality.
I feel like it would be the same with this, though.
Yeah, but only if you still have access to those project files, the original ones.
Which that I seriously doubt.
Yeah,
it's got to exist somewhere. It's probably on their hard drive somewhere.
Hopefully,
hard drive in a box in someone's basement somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, at least for archival purposes, because I mean, I've heard stories of video game developers that like just toss out the source codes for like entire games that are regarded as classics now, and then when they try to fucking like do like HD remasters, or they have to like build it off of older versions of the game, and like they just turn out like crap, like Konami trying to do the Silent Hill remasters or something.
Oh boy,
that's that type of situation.
Yeah.
So the new game is coming out tomorrow for Xbox, and I'm kind of excited because I pre-ordered it. But like Matt was saying, it looks fucking incredible. I would love to see them actually make a movie out of this. But it makes me laugh because the bad guys are they're called the Glucons, or the race of the bad guys.
Yeah.
And they're just like these weird dudes in suits. You have these super highly realistic faces of these characters, and they look incredible, but then they don't have any arms, and they just have like little baby feet.
Yeah.
It's just the way it's animated. It looks so highly realistic, and then it's so comical the way these guys walk. So fucking funny.
Specifically, those aliens, their heads kind of reminded me of the designs for like, it's not entirely 1-to-1, but in the first one or two like Fallout games, like the power armor helmets and those, for I think the Enclave, I think, like they're like on the box cover. You've probably seen them before, but not like the Brotherhood of Steel stuff you see like on all the newer games. But there's a specific type that it reminded me of that kind of tickled me in a certain way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Go ahead, Kyle.
so the first game is all about Abe realizing that because it's he's kind of a slave race of characters, and he's working in a factory, and the factory's making food out of like alien species, and they're doing it to the point of like extinction for these alien races. So they need something new, and Abe kind of falls onto this plot, and it's to make Madokan pups, and they
Right.
look like little ice creams, but they have their heads. And that was something I brought up to you guys too. Was they censored it in Japan? It's, when it first came out, it was just a severed head on a pike, and Japan had like these horrific murders, and it was about like decapitating children's heads.
Oh, geez.
So it was a big deal. So they switched it in Japan, and it's just like this cute little ice cream pop. And I think it's adorable. So that was what the first game was for, and it was for Rupture Farms. So I think after that, kind of destroy the factory, and they get moving on. So the second game, which this is about, is they're making like a soda pop, or like they call it a brew, and it's made of brown bones from the same race, the Modokans, and they they have more slaves, and they even sewn a couple of their eyes shut so they wouldn't know what they're mining, because I guess they're mining in like a burial ground.
Oh shit. Okay.
So that's the whole thing, is Abe's trying to save them from it. But I guess the brew is also like super addictive to him, like fucks with them, and that was kind of something they introduced in the game, is you have to like save intoxicated ones. There's like a certain way to do it. So that's kind of what the movie touches on, is that that drink is like highly addictive. And kind of in the movie it reminded me of Homer's Odyssey, with the witch and the pigs.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure if I know what
Because
you're talking about.
let me see.
Are,
'Cause,
are we talking?
Homer,
Are we talking about the one from the movie, or the like that CG short?
I mean, it's just the Greek poem. I think
Oh,
it's
sorry.
Homer's Odyssey.
I thought we were talking Homer from The Simpsons.
No, I mean they redid it in The Simpsons,
Yeah.
Right.
but it's the thing where his friends are drinking from the pot, and he's telling them like, no, don't do it, and they're not
Oh,
listening it, and it turns them into pigs. But that was kind of the same thing with this, is he's telling them like, don't drink from it, you guys don't know what it's from. So that was part of the movie. It was kind of a cinematic parallel in that
Yeah.
sense.
yeah. You know, it was funny. When you brought up the censorship stuff, with Abe, or with the Oddworld, it reminded me that they'd done something similar with Crash Bandicoot too, because I seem to remember that around that same time that the first Crash game came out, or one of those Crash games came out, they censored some of the death animations, like some of the ones where you get like flattened, and so it looks like, Crash's like head's peeking out of like his shoes, and
Yeah, so I was trying to think what the other thing was, and that's what it was. Because he
yeah,
gets flattened, and it's just his head with shoes, and they had to censor that.
yeah, because apparently like the murders in Japan, there were severed heads like next to just like shoes or something like that. That was strange, super weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because it was weird, because I had no idea that Oddworld got censored in that same way too, because I'd remembered when the remake of the first one came out, and I was just looking up, I'd looked up the intro cutscene to it, and I'd seen that the design for the pops or whatever, and it's just because I think like even in the remake, it's just the version that you were talking about, right? Like the ice cream looking one.
Yeah, because that's the new canon.
Right.
And I like it. I actually like it. It's super cute.
I
It's
like
not
it better
as
than
bad.
yeah, I like it better than the original thing, because when you showed me the image of like what it originally was, I'm just like, oh, that's close, that makes more sense within the context of like how they were serving them, I guess. But I don't know. I like the idea of like, yeah, they
Well,
there's an image I saw recently where it was like chickens are evolved from dinosaurs, and then they kill the chickens and they
yeah,
grind them up, and then they put them into
dinosaur
dinosaur
nuggets.
shapes. Yeah, so it's like the idea of like them grinding up that race and then like shaping them like themselves, like for like ice cream pops or something, was like kind of funny to me.
Well, see, I like it because when they show all the different types of food that they're selling, it's kind of like it looks like Hostess cupcakes and different stuff like that. So they're shaped like foods, and then a severed head doesn't really fit that aesthetic. So to
Yeah,
make it like this ice cream looking pup, I dig it more.
yeah, it certainly thematically fits better too.
Jeremy Snow here, owner and editor-in-chief of The Geekly Grind. I'm interrupting your awesome, regularly scheduled programming to ensure that you know about our Geekly Grind podcast network, of which this show is a treasured member of. If you haven't had a chance to check out our site, you can do so at www.thegeeklygrind.com, and while you're there, check out the other members of our steadily growing podcast family, including the anime-centric Blake and Spencer Get Jumped, discovering new heroes and comic book keepers with Chris and Lance, exploring the vast universe of geekdom with Geek Exploration, or of course appreciating animation's finer details with the Ink and Paint Club. Escape your weekly grind at the Geekly Grind.
Well, I was kind of circling back to the actual short film. So like I said, I've never really delved too far into any of the Oddworld stuff. But I think, like you were saying, Kyle, I think this little short really it's really driven by its stylized characters that even we're talking like 1998. I mean, the character animation and design I think really still holds up. I mean, obviously it looks dated, but like it's still really well done. I think really the only thing holding this little short back is the environments in it. It is still looking pretty rough, pretty I'm like mid 90s CG stuff, which you know it is. I don't think that kind of stuff holds up in the modern day nearly as much, but you know, it was really cool to see just these very interesting, very like alien creatures and like this strange way that they're animated. Like I still think that was like really well done and still holds up.
My thing, it's like I don't really think it's all that great of a movie. It's a lot of exposition from the newscaster,
Yeah.
Yeah, then that's
and
understandable because, you know, that's all everything that happens between the cutscenes that we see is all supposed to be gameplay. So it's like,
yeah,
yeah.
it's understandable. I get that, but I don't even feel like it tells a coherent story.
Yeah.
Like, it just says like, "Oh yeah, this happened," and then it's like something completely unrelated. Like I think it's a cool movie. I don't think it's too great in that sense. And then the ending is like bleak as fuck. And I think we touched on it. It's like a combination of different endings from the game.
Yeah, something like that. I think there's two endings and they took some elements from both and just smashed them in there, and I guess they thought that worked better for that short film or something like that. It was super weird. Yeah, because I looked up on the Oddworld wiki to see like, you know, any information on why, you know, the differences and like why this was made and stuff. Because originally when you brought this up, you're saying that it was like Oscar nominated, and I thought, oh wow, that's interesting. I've never heard that before. And then I looked up on there, and it wasn't Oscar nominated, but I guess the whole purpose of them making this short was to try to get it nominated for the Oscars. I think it might have made potentially
So
the short list or something, but
yeah, so I think they submitted it to be nomination, but it wasn't actually nominated.
Yeah,
yeah.
because the Wikipedia article or whatever fandom article, it says this film was nominated for an Academy Award, and then it says at the bottom, this is the first video game movie to be nominated for an Oscar. So I
Yeah.
just figured that
Somebody's information is a little off. But just rectify that on the wiki. Somebody get on that.
Fan wikis are always a source of correct information.
Yeah. But I would say at the very least that this is definitely a really neat novelty because, I mean, even nowadays, you don't really see a lot of video game studios that release their, especially for that era, that released like their cutscenes and stuff like, and try to, make them, like as a coherent, the story that can stand on its own without like gameplay and stuff. Because I could really only think of a couple of examples off the top of my head, and they're both from Rockstar. When Grand Theft Auto San Andreas came out, they'd put out like a 25-minute or like half an hour like prologue to the game. That was like on DVD. That was, I think, came with the game if you got like a special edition or something. And then I distinctly remember the other one was when Red Dead Redemption 1 came out, they had edited like the first arc of that game down to like a half an hour thing. And I remember them airing that on television. I think it was like on AMC or something. Because I think they were trying to get that nominated for like best short, like best drama short or some weird thing like that, like for the Emmys, I guess. Was, I think, the purpose behind that. But anyway, yeah, so it's the idea of like video game studios like releasing their cutscenes as like a product for general audiences to experience is definitely, I feel like there is a market for that, but I don't know that anyone's quite done it in the correct way yet. Because I mean, I feel like with Soulstorm, the game that just came out, like I looked, it's like an hour and 15 minutes of cutscenes just from that game. Like if you could find a way to like just add a couple more scenes in there that represent the gameplay that's supposed to happen, with how high quality that game looks and is like produced and stuff, you could easily release that like, in a theater.
Yeah, but like especially nowadays, I don't know how like necessary that would be.
YouTube.
Well, yeah, because we have YouTube, and like as soon as a game comes out, like within like an hour, someone's got like, okay, well here's all the cutscenes as a big movie. And here you go. You can watch it. I mean, hell, that is the only reason I know the plot to all the modern Mortal Kombat games is because I just watched a big movie of the cutscenes.
Yeah, but I mean, you do have to like. I'm thinking from the viewpoint of like people that don't play video games. If they saw advertised on television, like, oh, okay, like it's different. If you saw a commercial for a video game like that had the cutscenes and stuff, and you didn't play video games, of course you wouldn't be interested in it. But if you saw it and it was advertised as like its own movie, and you're like, oh shit, this is something that I can actually just go and like watch. Like it's not something I have to actively engage with, because I like I said, I think there is an audience for that sort of thing, but it's not somebody that would necessarily like think to look for it on YouTube or anything. Like, it has to be advertised to them in a certain way,
Yeah, and I honestly, and now that I'm thinking about this, I honestly think Sony could do something like that, where like, because Sony is aside from being a video game manufacturer, is also a movie studio. So like I could totally see them, and I mean the fact that there is a PlayStation Films branch, but still, like Sony, you should just make some like short animated things to go in front of your movies, like how fucking Disney does. But just like use your video game library, just make like stupid little shorts out of those.
I think Ratchet and Clank ruined that.
Well,
yeah,
I don't know. Uncharted's coming out.
Yeah, maybe. I was gonna say, like, I think Ratchet and Clank might have been a little too difficult to adapt as a movie, because there's so many characters and so many different stuff, and it kind of requires prior knowledge to go into it.
I mean, we could go into the problems of the Ratchet and Clank film, but
did you guys do that? Did you guys review that?
Oh, a while back. I think around when it actually came out.
But like with Oddworld, I feel like all you really need is Abe and then know the bad guy. I mean, most of his race is kind of nameless, and just kind of, it's only one guy doing the voice for everybody.
Well, that's Yeah, and that's the other thing too, though. Like, at least from what I've seen of the first two Oddworld games, I mean, the plot is an interesting one, but it's not necessarily like a totally complex plot. So I feel like a lot of Oddworld's strength is in its aesthetic and its design. So I feel like if you propped up with like a halfway coherent just like through line plot and everything, like, like I said, I mean, I didn't look through all of the cutscenes that are in Soulstorm, but I'm sure they've done it there. Like, there's a whole reason why they reimagined that game and didn't just do like a straight remake like they did with the other ones, is because as far as I know, that original game it did not turn out the way that they originally intended, which is why they took extra time and actually remade this one entirely. So
yeah. And then the other thing too is the main guy behind it, Lorne Lanning. He has background in movie stuff. He was like a visual effects artist before he
right.
went to video games. So I think it would just be like a, 'cause that's what a lot of people say. You see that just the storytelling and the games and stuff. You can see that he definitely has that background. So it would be a neat little jump to go from this to making an actual movie instead
Yeah.
of a short.
Yeah, it's kind of like something that Hideo Kojima so desperately wants to do. Like, all of his games are really fucking cinematic, but like he's just never actually tried to make the jump to actually trying to do anything for Hollywood, which that's a whole another discussion in relation to him specifically, because of how dense some of the stuff he can create is, or how it's that's a whole other discussion. But that's like the one example I can think of off the top of my head. Like,
Yeah.
it sometimes seems like he wants to make games solely so that he can edit the trailers to them himself.
Probably.
Like, that's
That
the
seems
reason
like
why
it.
he's into it.
Yeah.
He does a damn good job.
But I mean, in terms of this short film, I think it is, like Kyle said, I don't think it's like I don't think you're going to get a full narrative out of this kind of short, but I think it is enough that if you didn't know anything about the Oddworld thing, I think it's at least enough to intrigue someone to want to know more about it. Like, I appreciate the fact that they took the game cutscenes and then made like some extra filler animation just to fill in the gaps there. But I mean, it's a quick it's a quick 15-minute thing. If you're not familiar with Oddworld, I would say that, like, if the character design has ever interested you, maybe this is a quick little thing to maybe get you a little more interested in it. But like, I'm not saying this is like the greatest thing in the world, but it's cute for what it is.
Yeah, because I mean, there are better looking Oddworlds. There's better looking Oddworld stuff out there now that you could definitely kind of gauge your reaction on it if you'd be interested in it better. But like I mentioned, I think that this is neat as a sort of like little curio, as a video game studio releasing their own cutscenes into like a short form thing. Like, it's definitely interesting in that aspect.
Definitely.
The other cool thing is, so the way Soulstorm ends, it sets itself up for a third game, because I guess the original idea was to do 5 games in the series, and the way he kind of explained it was neat. That guy Lorne Lanning, because I remember someone else was explaining it that way too. Basically, he wanted to do this ripple effect, and he showed like the pyramid of how things work, and it was like Abe was at the bottom with everybody else, and then the next step was the glucons, the bad guys. So he was showing that he wanted to do this giant ripple effect for like this guy's boss is now going to be the bad guy.
Oh,
you know what I
okay.
mean?
Yeah, that's like basically like the main villain of your story is like the head of your Amazon warehouse, and you like eventually work your way up to like fighting Jeff Bezos. Like,
okay, so I watched kind of a documentary of him talking. So that's where it came from. Was he was bringing it up as Star Wars, where you think Darth Vader's the big bad guy, and here you're like, oh shit, and then you see like the Emperor is actually like the big bad of that. And then it was kind of funny because you could tell it was pretty fucking dated, because he was like, yeah, and then even the Emperor has a bad guy over him, and I guess that was supposed to be Snoke.
Yeah.
Could definitely tell it was a little dated.
Wow.
I think it's neat. Yeah, I do want to see what's going to happen future-wise with this because it's becoming something that I'm really into now.
Yeah, I mean it's a very interesting series, and yeah, it's not one that I was never able to follow in its heyday because like it was always on a system that I didn't have at the time. So now that I'm in a place where it's much easier to kind of get into it, like and I actually I technically own the New and Tasty and Soulstorm from just PlayStation Plus, like free games. So
Oh damn.
so I could always just check them out, I guess. So I just need to make some time to actually do that because I am definitely decently interested in the world and the aesthetic and everything. So it's and watching this short is definitely kind of now that I've got kind of a better idea of like what the content or the plot of it is. It's yeah, definitely intrigued me a bit more.
It's piqued some interest.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, so if you've never done Oddworld stuff, maybe give it a look. And if you're an Oddworld longtime fan and you haven't seen this, it's just kind of a fun little addition to the lore, to the franchise, I guess. Something like that. But yeah, I think that'll do it for this week. Appreciate everyone sticking around with us, giving us a listen. And everyone, wish Kyle a happy birthday. He's the big birthday boy.
Happy birthday, Kyle.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you for not making us watch Chicago Party Ant.
I did it so you didn't have to.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
All right,
that was
everybody.
probably one of the worst things I've seen.
I just watched the trailer and I could have told you that. Anyway, everybody, thank you for listening. Stay safe out there. We'll catch you next time.
Later.
See ya.
Thanks for listening. You can find all the links to our social media pages in the episode description. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and join our Discord. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. The Ink and Paint Club is happy to be part of the Geekly Grind Podcast Network. We'll see you next time.